It was all a blur. I had just woken up, so I opened the door for my dog, CJ. Him, being his usual mischievous self, ran downstairs, going a mile a minute. I trudged after, but when I looked around, he was nowhere to be seen. I blinked, and in that same moment, my mom came out of her room with a yawn, and CJ appeared in front of me with a pair of socks in his mouth. I let out a yelp for help, and my mom immediately grabbed a couple of treats, hoping to trade the socks for them. It almost worked. In his excitement, CJ dropped one of the socks. But to our complete dismay, we saw the other one disappear into the depths of his digestive system. Hello everyone, I'm Zaka Palicha and I'm in the 9th grade. My entire world revolves around one thing and one thing only, my dog, Chaubeji. Now, before I move on, you must be wondering what Chaubeji means. Well, all credit goes to my dad for the name. A Chaube is a learned priest, but I highly doubt this one is. He can't differentiate his toys from his own tail. That's how the nickname CJ was conceived. No one could pronounce his full name, and luckily, it caught on. We did have a dog before, Champak, but unfortunately, he passed away in 2019. For 3 years, my brother and I yearned for a dog, but my mother was not ready. She was the closest to Champak, and he was her first child. It took the rest of our family some time to get over the loss too. Champak was my best friend, a fantastic listener who always had a ear to lend whenever I needed to vent, and brought out the maternal bone in me at 7. I miss nurturing a pet and being nurtured by one. Ultimately, fate took our side. My mom was traveling once, and my dad sent a completely random text on our family group saying that we should get a dog. Of all the things my mom could have said, she said yes. From then on, the excitement levels rose as we looked for a new 4-legged member for our 2-legged family. Around the same time, one of my mom's friend's dogs was pregnant, and she became our blessing in a furry disguise. She left us no choice, and just like that, CJ entered our lives, a handsome, adorable English cream retriever. We had bought Champak from a breeder, not knowing how wrong it was. Breeding is a huge issue in today's world, now that foreign breeds are higher in demand. People, in their quest for dogs of certain breeds, such as Labradors, Golden Retrievers, Poodles, Beagles, Huskies, and so on, fuel the system of breeding. There are over 80 million dogs and cats that are struggling to survive on the streets across India, and a staggering 85% of people in India don't want homeless dogs anymore. As PETA repeatedly highlights, puppy mill breeders force dogs to reproduce repeatedly until their bodies wear out from the strain of being continuously pregnant in such harsh, impoverished conditions. At this point, female dogs are worthless to the breeder and are often dumped at animal shelters, auctioned off, or cruelly killed. Breeders' obsessions with pure bloodlines often lead to inbreeding. This causes painful and life-threatening disabilities in purebred dogs, some of them being crippling hip dysplasia, blindness, deafness, heart defects, skin problems, and epilepsy. Pregnancy and labor in any species comes with inherent risk to the mother, including death. Coretta Scott King once said, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members." Where is the greatness in our community? Is it even there? The night before CJ came home, I fell asleep as happy as a kid on Christmas Eve. I knew it was going to be tough bringing him up, but I was ready to give it my all. But nothing could have prepared me for the events that followed. The second he entered our home, CJ claimed it as his own. On the first night itself, His Majesty had to be sung to sleep. Otherwise, he just wouldn't stop barking. This was one of the minor problems he created. He used to pee all over the place. It got extremely out of hand to the point that my mother slipped on it once and hurt her knee, causing her to go to physiotherapy for it. Initially, he refused to come out of mine or my brother's room. But once he did, he was all over the place. From plants to magazines, from softball pins to socks, he ate everything he could get his paws on. Which brings me back to the elusive sock. You must be wondering what happened after that. Well, after frantically searching for the other sock, hoping we had just imagined that he had swallowed it, we gave in to the bitter truth. He had a belly full of wool. What now? Over a month, numerous visits to the vets took place. Every time we went, he needed a barium test, a diagnostic test that helps examine gastro issues and foreign objects in dogs and humans alike. After the barium was fed to him, we would let it settle in his stomach for a while and then take an X-ray. Barium shows us a high contrast in X-rays, so if there was any abnormality, we would have been able to see it. The first visit showed the sock happily curled up in his stomach. The second one showed that it was about to enter his intestine. This is when the vet tried giving him salt water in an attempt to throw up the sock and avoid surgery. As salt water burns for dogs and tastes horrible too, more went out of CJ than went in. And by the end of it, the entire room was covered with way more salt water than any ocean could ever have. But yet, it was all in vain. The sock just wouldn't budge and continued to escape us. By the time we did the third X-ray, the sock didn't even show up. It had disappeared without a trace, not even a thank you for the pleasant stay it had had. A few months later, a similar incident took place. I had kept my favorite headband on my shelf, seemingly out of CJ's reach. I learned the hard way that I couldn't have been more wrong. Dogs are extremely sun-driven, and any item of clothing with what seems like a little odor to us is bursting with irresistible aroma flavor to them. I was just leaving for school when I heard my mom call out to me. I went to my room, definitely not expecting what came next. I saw CJ in a corner, his head down. He dropped something. It didn't take me too long to realize that it was that very headband. I ran to grab it, but he beat me to it. Whenever my mom or I went near him, he would start to growl. We learned from the sock incident not to give him treats, but how else would we get the headband out of his mouth? After coaxing him with no success, my mom's gears shifted, and she picked up a lemon-flavored disinfectant spray. Maybe this would make him sneeze and spit it out? I waited with bated breath as CJ let the headband out. I ran to grab it before he could take it again and aimed it at the dustbin. I would say we stumbled upon an effective hack to help us retrieve items that he himself was constantly retrieving. Now, whenever we so much as show him the can, he drops whatever he has in his mouth. But of course, this didn't come without constantly and consistently training him. Instead of punishing him for everything he did wrong, we rewarded him for everything he did right by giving him a treat or a hug, which I don't think he appreciated. B.F. Skinner was an American psychologist and behaviorist who is considered the father of behaviorism. He coined the term positive reinforcement, which highlights that whenever a behavior is enhanced by a reward, it leads to a repetition of the said behavior. How did we manage his uncontrollable antics, you might ask? Not by punishment. Two separate studies done by Hibby and Blackwell in 2004 found that dogs trained using punishment were less obedient than dogs trained using positive reinforcement. Dogs whose owners trained them using punishment were more likely to develop behavioral problems such as fear or aggression. Not only that, but we spoke to him 24/7 to try to get him to understand the difference between the good and the bad. And I guess Skinner said it right. Properly used, positive reinforcement is extremely powerful. It truly is. I've learned many things and gained various skill sets over the past 1.5 years with CJ. I've evolved not just as a parent, but as a person too. My journey with him has me convinced that every child should experience the unconditional love that you receive from a pet, which brings out the softer side of your personality, and undiscovered levels of caring and attachment, which leads to the sense of ownership and responsibility. CJ has brought out parts of me I didn't know existed and continues to do so. He is my best friend, child, therapist, and partner in crime. Bringing him up continues to be an ever-learning journey, and though the peaks and valleys are tough to navigate, the view is always worth it. Thank you.